Welcome to the Executive Coach Podcast, where I help high achieving professionals and leaders go from box ticking busyness to a work life that actually feels exciting to wake up to. So today I want to talk about a topic that comes up all the time in coaching, and that is confidence. It's definitely a catch-all term, and it has many related terms like imposter syndrome, like specific mindsets. Now, this is an absolutely massive topic. We could spend hours exploring it, but instead of trying to boil the ocean, I thought, let me give you 3 things that I do find myself saying more regularly to clients in relation to scenarios that they bring me. So the first one is that confidence is not just one thing, and some types of confidence are a muscle. So if you're feeling not confident, it might help to ask, what type of confidence do you actually want to build? There's confidence in your expertise. There's confidence in being visible or social confidence. There is confidence in your new identity or building that confidence. There's confidence in speaking your truth. One form of confidence that is a very trainable one that you can apply a bit more of a system to, is confidence as a muscle. And often people will tell me, oh, I'm really lacking confidence when it comes to speaking. But actually, I've talked about in the episode, which was all about the rule of 100, is that by doing it regularly, you will build that muscle. You will build confidence by doing the thing. Whether that's speaking in the meeting when you're not prepared, putting yourself forward, trying the hard thing and realizing that you survived. So sometimes my clients can lack confidence because they've been playing it safe or they've been avoiding making mistakes. And it's worth asking yourself whether part of what's holding you back is actually a lack of that muscle of doing that thing. That kind of confidence gets built through exposure and reps, and initially it will feel awful, and that's okay. Sometimes we expect, because we see other people doing this stuff, that it's going to feel amazing, and if it doesn't, there's something wrong with us. We're lacking in the confidence. We've got the issue with that particular thing. So if there is a specific area that you want to build confidence in, it can help to look at it more like a muscle. The next thing that I find myself saying is sometimes your confidence wobbles, especially as a high achiever, because somebody else is not doing their job. So, for example, never underestimate the impact of an inadequate or a toxic boss, especially on high achievers. Because high achievers, they look at the world through their lens. They are brilliant managers. They are kind and compassionate to the people around them, and they therefore expect everybody else to behave in that way. And when people don't behave in that way, they take it personally. Whereas actually, first we need to look at what the failings are of that other person. Now, yes, this does come up quite frequently with my female clients, but actually it's come up with my male clients as well. I have found myself having to have some pretty sort of heartfelt conversations with clients who have been feeling their confidence being eroded because their manager is not making time for them. He's passing the buck onto them without supporting them sufficiently, and because they're high achievers, they feel like they should just be able to get on with it. This is where boundaries become really valuable. If we can understand where our boundaries are clearly and state them, it makes it a lot easier to then see what is other people's behavior. So that's the line manager example, but it could be in your important relationships as well outside work. If somebody is not doing their fair share of the emotional labor in your relationship, that as a high achiever can impact you as well. And going back to the many different types of confidence, one of the things that I often do with my clients is, whilst we're not in therapy, we will think back to some of those pivotal things that impacted their confidence as they have grown up and things that have shaped them. And often it really is those key personal relationships that we've had that have shaped our confidence. If we were lucky enough to find friends and partners and have family members along the way that just knew how to bring that out in us, we can find ourselves in a really different position than if we were unluckier in those earlier years and we didn't have those people in our in our corner beating our drum, right? And saying, you are really brilliant. I give little examples of this, like this podcast, for example. My producer, Arjun, who kicked this podcast off, he really gave me a lot of confidence to say, yeah, this is something that you need to do, Maya. You've got important stuff to say. You've got good stuff to say. And it's people like that in your ear that can make all of the difference. Sometimes it's not you that needs to be fixed. It's not your confidence that's the problem, it's the system. So sometimes what I will be doing with clients is actually validating their feelings for them to say, you know what, your response here is completely natural. There's nothing wrong with this response. Actually, the scenario is naturally going to bring that out of you. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to do anything about it, right? That doesn't mean we're not going to take action that is within our control. However, this often is the thing that takes the edge off for them, because they stop having to carry it all for themselves. They stop expecting that they should be able to do something differently. Recognizing the role of everybody in the system that impacts you can be really helpful in then alleviating the pressure that you need to be the one figuring it all out. So that's the second one. The third one is confidence naturally fluctuates, and that's okay, and it should. It's completely normal for your confidence to wax and wane depending on the context. When you're in your comfort zone, of course, you're going to feel more confident. When you're stretching, you're naturally going to feel more uncomfortable. It's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. That's a very human response. And I would even go so far to say, if you don't feel those flexes, I wonder whether there might be a lack of self-awareness. So actually, this stuff is your friend. Imposter syndrome is actually your friend. It's often telling you some really useful stuff. It's just that we think that we shouldn't be having those thoughts, so we don't give it its time in the sun. Whereas I actually think that imposter syndrome's better half is self-awareness. And if you can take some of what imposter syndrome is telling you and look at it constructively, you might learn some great things about your self-awareness. And I know that as I was growing up inside organizations, some of the people that I admired for their absolute kind of barefaced confidence, I then learned over time that they massively lacked self-awareness. They lacked the ability to know when they'd spoken too long. They lacked the understanding of some of the dynamics that were going on in the room. So always remember that your fluctuating confidence is not necessarily a bad thing. It's also you tuning into your self-awareness of what the situation needs. The final little bonus that I also find does come up is that if you find yourself, this is just one example, but there are others, but if you find yourself in emails or messages ending it with, if that makes sense. So you've just explained a point and then you say, if that makes sense. If you find, okay, once, twice, I've done it. But if you find yourself saying that a lot, I would just pay attention to that, because it can signal a lack of confidence, a bit of tentativeness, a sense that my ability to communicate and convey this is not sufficient, and so I need to add apologetic tone at the end. Now, this is one of those deep default habits, and like I say, there's no right or wrong here. We're often told as women that we apologize too much, whereas I'm okay apologizing because I have other ways in which I am direct, and so I want to make sure that my messages land. And if that means I need to do a little apology, I'm okay with that. So we need to find our own groove, and obviously that's what I do in a one-to-one where it's personalized. But this is just one that has come up a few times, and since the title of this episode is things that I often find myself saying to clients around confidence, I thought I'd chuck it in there. So I hope that's been of help on this vast topic. I would say that confidence is probably one of the key transformations that you get through something like coaching. It is very personalized. So these are some of the more general messages that I've been able to draw out from working with confidence with many hundreds of people now. Don't forget that you've always got my career blind spots checklist if you want to have a look at some behaviors that are going to signal the right things and increase your visibility. Perhaps you could actually give some of them a go, even if you have previously thought, I'm not confident enough for certain types of visibility. Have a look at that checklist and say, this is one area that I am going to treat as a muscle and I am going to develop. The link for that will be in the show notes, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye.